All right, ladies and gentlemen, like we've been talking about, it is Prime Week leading up to the Coke 600. So Prime said, hey, we need you to talk to somebody to give you a little bit of advice. First time on TV, coming from the field or the racetrack, behind the booth. None better than Prime co-host analyst Ryan Fitzpatrick joining Second Pennies.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, boys. Nice to join. Nice to be here.
Well, you landed from Ireland, NFL football tour. You land, you fire up the camera right now and jump on and talk with us. Appreciate you doing that. What's going on over there?
So I went to Ireland. This is one of those things, like just being a part of Amazon now and the stretch that you have, the cool things that you're able to do. The piece of advice I give you, just say yes to everything, because there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. So I was over in Ireland. There's a game in Dublin this year for the NFL. And this was, just showing appreciation to fans and going to a couple different venues. We went to Belfast, Dublin, Limerick, and Cork, and just had like some 90-minute sessions with fans, talking and letting them ask questions. And part of it was, can we introduce these guys to the game and expand the reach of the NFL? But a lot of it was me blown away with how interested they were and how much football they've watched over the years. So cool trip for me. Got to bring my wife. We've got 7 kids, so we never, ever, ever get to go away, just the two of us. So that was pretty special too. And then I said, Liz, we got to wrap up this trip. I got to go on the Stacking Pennies podcast, baby.
Right.
Let's get home for this thing.
That's right. Had to get the first class seat, get the bird up in the air, and get home. 7 kids, man. I got 3, and I'm already like overwhelmed. We juggle them. It's the most thing. I would love to have 7. My wife would not. How do you do it?
So the way you make 7, you've already made 3, so you should be able to.
I feel like there's
it's
similarities.
Dude, it's wild. But really, we always thought we'd have a big family. We thought, hey, 4 kids. I had 3 siblings. She had 3 siblings. We said, what's one more? What's one more? And when you get to 6 and you're making that decision, do we go to 7? You no longer fit in a normal minivan if you go to 7. So that was the only time where we had to stop and think and be like, okay, do we want to be the not just weird, but now really weird family with the 12-passenger van driving around? And all of our kids' friends call it the kidnapper van now. But 7 is a blessing, man. It's awesome. It's crazy. But even like when you're at 3, you're chasing them around. You're going nuts. And so we just added a few more. And then as they get older, they start driving too, and they become helpers in the house. So that part makes it a little bit easier these last few years for us.
What makes you stop at 7? My aunt and uncle have 10.
Hey, it's a great question. Because
he got the kidnapper van already. Fill it up.
We got the kidnapper van. Yeah, some of it was personal circumstance and other things going on in our lives where it was like we had to put it off, but they're literally like every 2 years on the dot. Boom, 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 boom. And then we missed that window for 2 years for the 8th one and just decided to hang up the cleats,
Well, speaking of hanging the cleats up, that's a good segue, because that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about, man. Hanging the cleats up, going to do TV. You mentioned about being the weird family, but I don't think you did anything normal, whether it's your playing career or now TV with the printed shirt, just the takes that you have. You legitimately were my favorite analyst watching TNF. So I want to try to kindle a little bit of that Fitz magic on the broadcast this weekend. What do you – because you were a bit of a journeyman. Nine teams threw a touchdown pass for a record 8 teams in the NFL. I think I've always found it interesting watching your career, man, because you have to get really good at culture, being a culture guy when you're moving that much, and also still getting the nod to lead that team as a quarterback. Same thing as a driver. I've been a bit of a journeyman myself. So before TV, what would it take to stay alive and stay at the top of the spear when it comes to being a pro football quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that for me was confidence in myself. And it's hard because you're beaten down. You have successes and then you have failures, and you just keep getting beaten down with some of these failures and having to move from team to team. But it's the belief in yourself that you can do it. And that was something, that for the most part of my career, it was stolen from me in 2016, had an awful year, didn't want to play anymore. And from that moment on, I think my personality really started to show, because everything was icing on the cake from there on out. the last 5 or 6 years of my career. But always having, putting the work in, knowing who I was as a person and a player, and always having that deep rooted self belief. I think that was what pushed me throughout my career. And then with that, going on to the analyst world, I didn't think I was ever going to do that. I wasn't planning on it. I didn't have some grand vision or timeline. It just kind of happened. I got so lucky that Amazon decided, the year that I retired just so happened to be the year they were looking for people to be analysts for them. So then the other part of that is, okay, I'm an analyst. I'm with Tony Gonzalez, Hall of Famer. I'm with Richard Sherman, future Hall of Famer. I'm with Andrew Whitworth, future Hall of Famer, and me, journeyman quarterback. But I don't look at myself in that situation as lesser than. I think I have such a unique perspective that I can offer and that I could show. None of those guys were in 9 locker rooms. None of those guys led 9 teams. None of those guys have the relationships and connections I do because of all the places I was. And so being able to leverage those relationships, being able to share my perspective from a different view than maybe a guy that's up here as a Hall of Famer. There's depth to our broadcast, and we also have a lot of fun. So I think having those different points of view, there's a place for guys, the Dale Earnhardt Juniors of the world, for sure. And then there's a place for the other guys, because it does add depth and perspective to the broadcast.
Yeah, I think that's something Corey and I have both gone through. If you play sports or do something professionally for a long time, you always envision yourself coming out of college being Tom Brady, being Jeff Gordon, driving for one team, taking him to the promised land. But we both had careers. I mean, Corey had a career where he was a journeyman as well, and I've recently gone from a championship-winning team to a team that's on the back half of the garage, and it's been challenging to adapt. But I wondered how you dealt with that. Like when you realize, like, okay, just like you said, what am I going to bring to the team? What am I going to bring to the culture? How do I make connections? What's my next step? Like, do you have a moment where you remember, like, a shift in your career from, like, being Super Bowl winning quarterback, trying to be that, and then trying to be like that, but also be a mentor and a culture builder for the teams that you were on?
Yeah, I think there's one of the most important things in football, and probably in other sports too, and in life, is like understanding who you are and understanding what your role is going to be. And so I think the appeal to a lot of teams for me was I can step in and be a bridge quarterback. I can be a mentor. I can be a guy that is going to show young guys how to be professional and how to approach and attack the game the right way. And then, as soon as it flips and the younger guy is the guy that's in there playing, I'm going to be a good teammate and try to help them out. And so, I had such a good time. Miami might have been one of my favorite seasons ever. And we started 0-7 maybe, but that was the year they were joking, hey, let's tank for Tua. Let's tank to get a good draft pick. And I'm sitting there in the week 1 introducing myself to linemen in the huddle because they literally either traded or cut kind of everybody that was around. But then you have this island of misfit toys that are in the NFL, but everybody deserves and belongs there, and trying to draw confidence out of these young guys and let them know they're there for a reason, and building on that, and then finishing the year on a high note. Those aren't Super Bowl winning years or playoff teams, but those are experiences for me that I really enjoyed. And, I'm proud of those teams. I'm proud of the way we went from awful to decent, and, help guys further their careers because of the confidence I was able to instill in them.
Yeah, I could really relate to that as well. When you talk about offensive linemen, in my case, it's mechanics, engineers, guys that are kind of misfit band of toys, if you will. And you don't get a lot of credit from taking an awful team to making them less awful or decent. So like that's been the story of my life. But it's like, okay,
you know what though? Yeah. You know what though is like the guys, your peers see it and they know it though, right? Yeah. And that was always something that was satisfying for me, going to a different team and having a coach come up to me and for him to say how much respect he had for me or the way I approached or played the game. Those little moments, I think, are the ones that do make you proud of, people being able to recognize that, especially your peers that are in the game with you.
I wonder if you agree with this, because I've kind of had this in the last 3 years. On pit road, the pit stops have changed. We've gone from 5 lug nuts to 1 lug nut. So what that opened an avenue for is a lot of football players, D1, D2 athletes that have come in. And a lot of the older guys like me that have been around for a long time kind of get bitter about it. And I made a starts decision. And I feel like the media can be fooled into liking you or not liking you depending on the storyline, but what can't be fooled is your peers. And I felt that I was like, I know above all else that I am going to be the guy when I come back. People are like, oh, there's Flores. Like, he helped me out. He made me feel good. He helped me in this situation. I do this because of him. And I feel like you're the same way. Like, most people see you and they don't shy away or be like, there's a lot of people, we all know him, that you're like, man, he was a great player, but he's a dick. Right?
Right.
And
right.
I think that it's not as sexy if you don't have Super Bowl rings or championship rings. But to your point, man, I've found so much value in the incremental change and the help of seeing somebody succeed or just boosting their career to move forward.
Yeah, and it's how you measure your success. And like my success, all the relationships that I was able to make, and all the great teammates that I've had over the years, and the great coaches. And then you get in the NFL, it's like then you get to the staff members as well. And I still talk to plenty of equipment guys in different places I've been, and training staffs, and just the people that make up the building. You truly do become family, even for me, if it was 1 year and then moving on. But you love to see those people succeed in their careers too. I had a guy, I don't know who he ended up working for, but talking about the football players going to NASCAR, his name was Aaron Walker. He was from Florida. I played with him in St. Louis. He was a big old sucker. He was like 6'7", 260 pounds. And maybe he was one of the earlier guys, probably around 06, 07, 08, that crossed over to NASCAR.
He was a Hendrick. I remember. He was on the 88. He was on Dale Jr.'s car.
Yeah,
Aaron
there you
Walker.
go. I always thought that was
Big
pretty
boy.
cool, though. He had a passion for it. He was a big old boy.
Yeah, he was a big boy.
Ryan, I always like to – generally we only talk to NASCAR guys or a buddy of mine that drives here. And I always ask them what was like your welcome to NASCAR moment, whether it was somebody spinning you out or, somebody telling, hey, welcome to the show. What was your welcome to the NFL moment?
So I'll give you two, and the first one I was on the Kelsey podcast, New Heights, not too long ago, and I told this, so I'll tell this one briefly, and then I'll tell you the second one. The first one, when you're a backup quarterback, I mean, as a 7th-round draft pick, it was a 4th-round guy or a 4th-string guy, you just don't get reps ever, especially my rookie year. I didn't know I was going to make the team, end up making the team, 3rd-string guy. Starter goes down halfway through the year. So I'm the backup for a game, literally like have thrown to these guys maybe 3 or 4 passes total, because you don't get reps with the starters when you're the 4th and the 3rd-string guy. And there are only so many reps you can get in a day. So it's not like they're doing reps for these 3rd-stringers. I get thrown into a huddle with 4 future Hall of Famers. I mean, I'm in there with Marshall Faulk and Orlando Pace and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce as a rookie, not knowing what the hell I was doing, like calling plays and them looking at me. And we ended up coming back. We were down 21 points that game. Ended up coming back and winning in overtime. So that was like such a cool moment for me and validating in that, like, okay, I kind of belong here. And then secondly, when you come in as a rookie, there are some guys that have been in for a while that have made a lot more money than you've made. And so, I was on that league minimum salary, which is a good living. But when you're making what you would say pennies compared to these guys making tens of millions of dollars, the cars in the parking lot are pretty nice. And so I moved out to St. Louis after I was drafted there with my soon-to-be wife. I had a Nissan Pathfinder, which I felt great about, guys. And she had a lime green Volkswagen Beetle. And anytime we had family and with the flower and every had the holder with it, yeah. So anytime we had family come in town, the Nissan Pathfinder had to go to her to pick people up, and I had to drive the Beetle in. So I'm driving the Beetle in, waving to everybody. Everybody's laughing. I'm parking next to lifted trucks and Rolls Royces and Bentleys, but that was like we're not in Kansas anymore moment for me too.
I love that. What do you drive? What's your daily driver now?
So I I drove a truck for a very long time, F-150, and actually it's the truck that my boys drive right now, 09 King Ranch. But when I moved from Tampa to Miami, I had to make that drive quite a bit, and so I got a Tesla so it would drive me back and forth, and I love it. I've got a Model S, and yeah, it's been great for me. And you guys probably hate hearing guys going electric, but
We're
it's a
not
smooth ride,
like
man.
that. We like a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that I love it.
I don't mind.
I figured you weren't gonna love it.
I originally said electric vehicles would be a hill I would die on, but I've come to realize the older I get, there is no hill worth dying
Bro,
on.
you drive a Tesla for the first time, you're like, hey,
pretty nice.
Not that bad.
Pretty nice.
It's
I understand
insane.
why
You know
that
what? The
guy's
only
got so
thing
much
though
money.
is that there's not a whole lot of maintenance, right? You don't have. There's nothing you really change out. No oil change, maybe air filter, but so you're not going in for those routine checkups as much. But I didn't realize this in having the first one. Every time somebody gets in the car, you gotta burn out, right? You gotta show them how fast it is, and well, those tires get worn out quickly, boys. And I'm not one to like be sitting there looking at my tires. So I was at like 22,000 miles, and when I tell you they were as bare as can be, like I was probably pretty lucky I didn't blow a tire.
NASCAR yesterday had their electric car at the racetrack, and it did burnouts. 1,200 horsepower that thing will run at for 30 minutes. It's pretty impressive.
It's a gnarly vehicle. It's about going through tires. We're gonna be going through what 14 sets this week.
Big week for
Coke
the Coke 600. A lot of pit stops.
NASCAR on Prime first weekend. Everybody's excited. Are you gonna be watching? And are you gonna be able to come to one of these 5?
So I'm gonna try. I know potentially Nashville. I've been looking, trying to fit it into my schedule, but the beautiful thing about Prime, and this happened with football too, is there was such a question of, gosh, how is this streaming thing going to go? Is it going to be a better product? It's going to look a little bit different. It's harder to get. And for us in the NFL, like there was a little, like, my grandma calling me the day of the game going, how the hell do I get this? How do I find it? But once you find it and figure it out, it's an amazing product. And I think the thing that's been great for us on the NFL side is they're not afraid to do things differently. If you have an idea, and I was at an event in Vegas with Dale Jr., if you have ideas, and he was talking about some of the stuff he would love to add to the broadcast, they're not afraid to try. They're not afraid to go outside the box. And then they're just the picture quality and everything else, it's going to be top notch because they do it the right way. So we get a lot of compliments in the NFL about the product.
Meeting with leadership staff and just people behind the scenes at Amazon, I'm like, these guys can change the game of how fans take in our sport. And I think it legitimately is going to take it to the next level. Maybe not year 1, but as we start to trickle in year 2, 3, 4, as the fans start to get acclimated to what they're capable of doing, it's going to change the game. You've spent a lot of time around. You mentioned all the pro Hall of Fame athletes you've been around on the TNF desk itself, but Dale Jr. spent some time with him and just, I'm sure, pro sports athletes, golf, all sorts of different things. And you've probably noticed a lot of similarities between any sport crossover. So what are some of the things that you've noticed, sports unrelated, of just the mindset that the best of the best have versus the rest?
Yeah, I think it's the drive. Right, it's the thought of always trying to attain that and doing everything you can to attain that. I think that's number one. And yeah, I mean, athletes are just different. We have a different mindset, and I think over the years, for me, and I mentioned this earlier, really understanding who you are and being able to play to whatever your strengths are and trying to hide some of your weaknesses. That's always a big thing too, but that constant drive to be better every day. I actually I had a really cool opportunity through Amazon. I got to go on an aircraft carrier with Adam Alexander and Steve Letarte, and we spent the night, and we got to see the pilots coming in on the F-18s and the F-35s and taking off, and the precision, and even just sitting down at lunch with those guys, and how driven they were to be the best at what they do was a really neat experience for us. But that's one of those qualities that kind of transcends sports, even for the guys that are trying to be the best at everything they do.
A little bit of a technical question because myself, I've been in the trenches for a decade, X's and O's, into the data, trying to find the smallest margins for a little bit of speed on the racetrack, trying to make your team better, trying to make yourself better, trying to make your car go faster. Same thing with you. You spent 17 years in the trenches, X's and O's, on the depth chart, trying to figure out how you could go up or how you can beat the next team. How do you zoom out of that, right? Because a lot of fans probably do care about the X's and O's, but probably not in the depth of what you and I have been used to for the entirety of our careers. How do you then portray that to where it's not just noise, where it's actually applicable for somebody who's never played professional level?
Yeah, I think that's something that's gonna be a tough thing. You're gonna have to gauge. You're gonna have to find your audience and figure out what works and what doesn't. Some of that technical stuff is great, but you're also gonna find that like sometimes you don't have as much time to talk as you think. So it is a lot of like the bird's eye view stuff. I always try to keep in mind. I think like thinking about my wife watching a game, or even like my mom before she passed, like watching a football game, what does she want to get out of it? My wife didn't watch football at all until we got to college, and she was forced to watch me, and then has seen a ton of NFL games. My mom kind of the same way, but it's like they get and understand the game, but they don't want to hear about a 3-4 and what the nose tackle's responsibility is and two gapping. And there's a time and a place for some of that stuff, but there's a lot of stuff where you can just pull back the curtain. If you pull back the curtain, let us in on things that are happening. And I wouldn't be afraid to state some of the obvious things either, because there's a lot of stuff that I'll be honest, like I don't watch a lot of racing. And so there's a lot of stuff that I'm really going to be into, even just talking to Steve, like on the aircraft carrier, and some of the things he was telling me at a very basic level, it's awesome. And so I think starting with that mentality of we're pulling back the curtain, we've got some new viewers here, and we're going to let them see and know everything we do here. I think that's a good starting point. And then you'll find your sea legs, I guess, in terms of like how in depth you really need to get.
Yeah, that's great. That is great advice for sure. I wondered, we are a NASCAR podcast, right? So we got to know about any of your NASCAR experiences. Do you have a favorite driver? Any memories? Have you ever watched much racing? Because we know we're in the trenches with racing as well. We don't know much about football. We know you guys from TV, but I wondered if you had any experiences, any drivers, anybody you've met that stands out to you.
Dude, I don't really. My dad watched a ton growing up, so I've been to one race before, and it was in Phoenix. All I remember is the earplugs and having to put them in. That's legitimately it. But that, to me, like that's why I know, like if the big names, like growing up, certainly Jeff Gordon was at the top of the list, but like my knowledge is not very in depth, and so that's why it's a cool thing about Amazon too. Is now like the reach. Anybody that has a Prime account is going to be able to tune in and be interested, and then that's your guys' job, is to inform the viewer and keep them there and get them excited about racing. So I'll be there. I'll let you know. I'm going to let you know if it's working or not, but I can't wait to get into this. We've had some people, from on our side of it, from the football side, are helping out, and they're, buying like NASCAR for Dummies. And then there's others that are way into this that have been in it forever. So I think you're going to have such a wide range of viewership. That's going to be a lot of fun for you guys to be able to introduce some people to the sport.
Well, we need Ron, we need to get you to the racetrack and get the earplugs out and put like an actual headset on and get you like into the deep water.
Hell yeah. I mean, I did on the aircraft carrier. I did that. I'm sure it was similar, like the things that we got, because it was so loud, but I'm in, baby. I would love to do that.
Yeah, because it's legitimately like when you're sitting on a pit box, you're listening to the offensive coordinator and the head coach call plays, right? And you're listening to the quarterbacks, the driver essentially of the team, relaying information, defensive schemes, and all that. Like you would be hooked, because I think, personally speaking, the two sports that have the biggest difference between at-track experience versus TV broadcast is NASCAR racing and hockey. Because if you've been to a hockey game, it's electric, right? You can watch it and you don't really know the players, but you go there, you're immersed in it. So I'm excited to maybe tighten that gap between the consumer's experience of a race and what a live sensation is. I'm sitting here looking at this ball, though, and I don't want it to go remiss. It's a Buffalo Bill on it. So Ty Johnson, the running back there, second string behind Dalvin Cook, James Cook rather, gave me this when they were doing the warm-ups. I was there for the Sunday night game, 49ers, when it was just dumping snow. And you might have been there a couple weeks before or after, but you are like revered in Buffalo, right? Rightfully so. I mean, people roll the red carpet out, man. The Fitzmagic almost came to be in Buffalo. I also didn't understand the Buffalo way until I went. That's all those people care about.
Well, and blue cheese, not ranch.
Yeah, not ranch.
Clearly. That place is amazing. But my connection there and the reason how I'm going to tie this all together is Stag and Pennies, name of the show, came from just a coined term that now the sports psychologist there, Dr. Desiree Festa, who's the sports psychologist for the Bills, I worked with her when she was down here in Charlotte. Get to the league, rookie, not what I ever intended to be. Like, I thought I was going to be the Jeff Gordon, the Tom Brady. Like, that's where I worked for. That's what I thought my trajectory was going to be. Get with a bit of a dysfunctional team, realize that it's not going how I want it to go, and lost sight of the things that I had control over. So we figured out 5 or 6 things every week that I had full control over to essentially get my brain kickstarted to just control what I can control. And those were the pennies. Those were the things that I was trying to do. Then you start adding pennies. So it's interesting, man, how it all relates, yourself included. When you're a third string, second string guy, there's still things that you can control. But there's a lot of things outside of your control that inhibits or allows you to do what you wanted to do. So what were some of the pennies that you did early in your career and then followed the rest of your career?
Yeah, I love that. You control what you can control, right? And so for me, it was always, okay, what are my strengths? What am I good at? I can master this playbook. I can know this playbook better than anybody else. And one of my traits as I went on was teams looked at me and said, okay, we can have this guy come in and be our starter, even though he hasn't been in the system, because we know that, over the last 8 years of what we've seen, he can come in and have a command for this thing early. And I also always wanted to be reliable. I wanted to be the guy that showed up all the time that you knew you could count on. And those are two like really simple little things. But it's like, I tell my kids this all the time. My 2 oldest are boys, and now they're 18 and 16. And it's like, if somebody knows they can count on you, that goes such a long way. And always having that, knowing that I was going to be there and I was going to show up and I was going to be able to play through injury, and that you could depend and count on me every Sunday or every day of the week. Like that, those were things that were always right here on the top of my brain that I wanted to make sure that I got across every single day. And so I did not know that's why it was Stacking Pennies. I love that. Mine, I should change the name of my podcast to Stacking Children, because we just kept popping them out. But I think we're done now. So that's really cool, though. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for coming on. Before I let you go, I know you got a big day in front of you. We asked 3 questions to all of our guests. Most of these are obviously NASCAR related because that's all that we really know and love. The question generally is, if you had to drive one type of car and one racetrack for the rest of your life, what do you go with? I'm going to ask you this.
Okay, good, because I don't know that answer.
Yeah, you don't have to know. I'm gonna change it for you, and tell me if this is like a dumb question, then reframe it as you wish. Behind you, you mentioned that Amazon gave you a gift. It was a helmet. Can you grab it? Like, unless it's not.
Yeah, let me grab it.
So Amazon gave you. I'll let you explain it because you did a good job explaining it. I don't want to speak on your behalf.
So this was for. Let me get this thing out of here.
Take the stand out.
So for my birthday a couple years ago, Amazon presented me with a gift, and it was
that's sick, dude.
My helmet, or a helmet with all 9 teams that I played for, all the decals on there, and then a visor with the Amazon logo on the front. And it was great because it was during our coverage. Right around Thanksgiving, which is when my birthday is. My whole family was there and came on set with me and presented me with this. And you get to the point as you get older where it's like, what do you want? What kind of gifts do you want? I don't care. If I want to get something, I buy it. And that was just something that was so thoughtful and cool. And so I love that. But that's probably not sanctioned to wear on a racetrack, huh?
We can make some exceptions.
Depends on the track, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you this. That is context for my question. if you had to pick one of those teams or a different team on there completely and one game to play, like the feeling of running out the tunnel for the rest of your life, what do you do?
Boys, this is an interesting question because what comes to mind right away is Buffalo. Now, the interesting part is this is the last year that they have in their current stadium. So it's going to be a different stadium next year. But just that the intimacy in that stadium, the college vibe, what you had said of the fans there, and I don't know if you got a chance to tailgate or not, but just
I went to the Hammer lot.
You went to the Hammer lot, of course. The bowling ball shot. You see the ketchup and mustard and the cooking bacon on the.
I saw that. I
mean,
there's so many people in there you could hardly move. It was unreal experience.
We were eating pizzas out of a filing cabinet, all of that stuff. But that place is just different. It is, and it's not just the Bills. It's just the way that usually if you're born in Buffalo, you stay there. There's such a family aspect to it. Special place, though. So I would definitely run out of the stadium in Buffalo if I had to pick one experience, that I had to do for every day for the rest of my life.
That's cool. And also, too, one added thing about Buffalo, it was dumping snow. And usually, like normal human beings, as it gets colder and the elements become worse, you just like inherently like zip your coat up more and just bitch about everything that is going wrong or that it's not 75 and sunny. That's the opposite up there. They unzip
thrive
their
on
jackets.
it, baby.
They and I've seen you do it as well. Pull your shirt off, and the colder and the more snow and the worse the elements are, the louder they get and the more rowdy they get. It's absurd to me.
Yeah, it's just it's a source of pride, and some of it might be the alcohol consumed as well. But yeah, it's a huge source of pride there. The crummier the weather, the better they are. And right now they've got the perfect quarterback for that too. I mean, Josh Allen was made to play in the elements, so he's so much fun to watch.
Shout out Josh and Sean McDermott. He's a cool guy too, big NASCAR fan as well. Question number 2: what is your most embarrassing moment on the field?
Most embarrassing moment on the field, gosh. Well, guys, I did throw a lot of interceptions in my career, so trying to think of something that's not just a normal answer like an interception. Hey, let me go with I'll tell one of my friends' most embarrassing moments. How about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I love doing that and just pointing out. So Chris Godwin, unbelievable receiver, was drafted in Tampa Bay. Great dude, and I've said this for a long time. The most impressive rookie that I've ever seen. Came in right away, picked up the playbook. You talk about setting a standard of excellence every single day. That's who he was from the time he stepped into that facility, and still to this day, that's what he does. His first career reception, he was a little sick that day, and he may have squirted out the back of his pants.
Oh.
His first career reception, there's a picture of him with a little stain.
Just so you know, Corey pooped his pants at Daytona 500 this year. Live, real life.
I mean, we've all got stories, right? We've all got incidences. So it's just.
Thanks for pointing that out.
We have a thing in our house. Days since the last accident, like from Monsters Inc. and factories and whatever, but it relates to that. And just say I'm not on the leaderboard right now, which is awesome.
Hey, that's a win these days. Can't trust it. You can't trust it these days, especially with 7 kids, man. You never know what's going to come out. Last question, and you'll appreciate this. You'd be surprised. A lot of people that we have on this show are young drivers coming up in the ranks under the age of about 23, and they have never seen Men in Black. And the reference is, the memory zapper pen. So if I had that memory zapper pen and I clicked it and you only got to keep one football memory, what do you keep?
Ooh. That is a great question. I have a lot of good ones. I would say the memory that I would keep, and this plays off of the Bills and the fandom there with the Mafia, in 2011, early in the season, we beat the Patriots, the mighty Patriots, and there had been a drought where they had won
40.
Bills fans will be mad I don't remember the actual number, but 14, 15, 18 games in a row, whatever it was. And we won that game at the very end with the last-second field goal from Ryan Lindell. And the feeling in that stadium, I'm not sure I've ever felt again in my life. And so that's the one memory in my NFL career that I would want to have forever.
That's cool. I'm sure we can find some film of that and plug it in. But Ryan, I appreciate your time so much, but I'm really excited to represent Prime this weekend on Amazon or on Prime. I hope you watch.
Yeah, you gotta learn the lingo too. On Prime Video. Is it Amazon? I'm sure
it's
you're
not
gonna
Amazon.
get
It's Prime.
lectured
NASCAR
after
on
this.
Prime.
It's Prime, baby. There you go.
Prime time this Sunday night. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, chopping it up with us a little bit. You're welcome back anytime on Sag and Pennies. Hopefully I'll see you at the racetrack here soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, boys.
Have a good day.